you all for coming out on such a short notice, but we are in a mess in this country. So that's what helps people come out. Wonderful. We don't want to start too soon. We got about 2 minutes from now. Anthony Hoss.
I like the glasses you got.
I'm glad. David Hansman. Okay, we're much done. Everybody ready to go?
I think that ceasefire fellow standing by there.
He's a good guy.
Okay.
Right into it. Okay, everybody, we're ready to go. Thanks again. There are times in life when black people are just angry. Angry that the United States of America is not living up to really being the land of the free and the home of the brave, not living up to its constitutional requirements of fair and equal treatment under the law, not living up to being that shiny city on a hill. When I watch the news over and over and over again during the past several days, the story did not get any better. The two youngest black Democratic Tennessee House Democrats were unceremoniously expelled from their seats of power because they followed the example of U.S. Congressman John Lewis, who frequently commented on his belief in creating good trouble. Good trouble. They were fighting the good fight on the floor of the House chambers, supporting hundreds of young people, mostly white, who had come to urge passage of sensible gun legislation to help assure that they might live to graduate from their schools, from their universities and colleges, and live to be contributing adults in their communities, and that those communities be safe for all people. The irony of these two black legislators being expelled is that their actions were in response to the deaths of 3 9-year-old children who were killed along with the adults at the Covenant School, a private school in Nashville, Tennessee. April 3rd, the day on which 3 different Republican legislators introduced motions to expel the 3 Democrats, including 1 white female legislator, was a bad day for the future of democracy in Tennessee and possibly the nation. And a bad day for the urgent and ongoing call for reasonable, sensible, and much needed gun legislation. Now, former Tennessee legislator Justin Pearson was expelled on a vote of 69 to 26. He referenced in his statement immediately before the vote the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, his belief in putting, quote, conscience above the law, end of quote. He went on to say that, quote, we have heard from thousands of people asking us to do something about gun violence. What is in the best interest of our people is ending gun violence, end of quote. The white legislator, Ms. Johnson, survived the attack on democracy by 1 vote, saying to CNN, quote, I think it's pretty clear. I'm a 60-year-old white woman, and they are 2 young black men, and calling them amazing young men who are working so hard for people in their communities, end of quote. What upsets many of us further who watched the news over the past several days, the now former legislator, Justin Jones, listed other lawmakers who acted unprofessionally or have been investigated for misconduct, but had not been expelled from the legislature. One of those legislators was a convicted child molester. One had urinated on the seat of a fellow legislator. Justin Jones called the expulsion, quote, an extreme measure, and described the act as, quote, an attempt to silence and undo the will of over 200,000 Tennesseans. The mission of Bpep is that we vote in each and every election, not just in Pittsburgh or Pennsylvania, but across the nation. What these legislators did was to try to uproot that commitment, or uproot the results of two men who had been voted in, and they pulled them out. I remind us all that these three legislators were duly elected by their constituents. The men who were expelled were raising their voices to protect the lives of children of Tennessee. They were not raising their voices to protect themselves, just the opposite. They were putting their legislative positions in jeopardy. According to a CBS News article, there was a statement on social media stating that the Tennessee House Republicans said it was a, quote, sad day for the state. They defended the vote as, quote, the only path forward in response to the trio's disrespectful actions, end of quote. They went on to say their focus, quote, continues to be on the 6 innocent lives that were brutally taken last week at the Covenant School, not those who have chosen to make this tragedy about themselves. The Republicans had the nerve. Bpep is nonpartisan, but we're stating the facts of who said what. Let's be clear. The Republicans had the nerve to state that unprecedented events yield unprecedented consequences. Unfortunately, they went on to say, we were obligated to levy unprecedented consequences on those members today, end of quote. This language, in the opinion of Bpep, the Black Political Empowerment Project, is a blatant attempt to cover up an effort to ensure that black lives in Tennessee don't matter. That they don't matter. I don't personally use the term racist too often, but I doubt if there are a few black people in America and millions of others in America of other races and persuasions and ethnicities who did not see this act by the Tennessee legislature as anything but a racist act to two young, black, brilliant legislators to, quote, I'm saying this, stay in their place and be quiet. According to an NPR story of April 7th, 2023, quote, it's rare, listen, it's rare that any legislative body in the U.S., it's rare for them to expel a member. Most states have reportedly never done so. Most expulsions have involved criminal conduct or abusive behavior, not the suppression of dissent or targeting of political opponents. It's absolutely clear for many of us who have witnessed the powerful oratory of both Justin Jones and Justin Pearson that their voices will not be silenced. We're here to make sure that their voices are not silenced. On the contrary, the racist and despicable acts of the Tennessee House of Representatives have made their voices much more powerful than they could have ever expected. And if anyone wonders of the importance of these particular now former legislators, although as we speak, one of them may be being reinstated by their counsel. If anyone wonders the importance of these legislators' efforts to urge passage of effective and wide-ranging gun legislation, MSNBC reported this afternoon that listen, I never heard this before. 1 in 25 kindergartners will not live to be 40. I'm going to repeat that. That should be frightening to even the most right-wing, gun-toting person in America. 1 in 25 kindergartners will not live to be 40. We've heard for some time that the top cause of death to young people is what? Firearms. Guns. The top. Today, while I was working on my comments for this presentation, I learned, as some of you may have, that 4 people were killed in a bank, 9 injured in Louisville, Kentucky, with some kind of long gun. They haven't identified it yet. One of those injured included a police officer who was shot in the head and is in critical condition and had just joined the police force on March 31st of this year. So the issue of guns is not just what happens in the black community, which is ongoing and must cease, and all of us continue to fight that. But our police officers should not have to go in a situation where there might be an AK-47 or an AR-15, which could blow them apart. They should not have to deal with that. We end the now hollow calls for thoughts and prayers. Can we have a funeral for thoughts and prayers? It used to mean something. And instead call for all of us to partner with such groups as Ceasefire PA, Moms Demand Action, Bpep's own Greater Pittsburgh Coalition Against Violence, and our numerous partners in the region who continue to fight violence, to demand wide-ranging and effective gun legislation that will include providing much-needed expanded background checks, extreme risk protection orders, often called red flag laws, and the permanent end, can we say permanent? The permanent end to the purchase of instruments of death, such as AR-15s and AK-47s. We remind everyone in Pennsylvania and across this nation that such groups as the Black Political Empowerment Project will continue to urge our communities to vote in each and every election. We will not tolerate any party, any group, or any individual who will attempt to counter our power and to not acknowledge our rights, nor acknowledge our existence as a people. That's our statement. That's what we face this day. We're bringing up the Western Pennsylvania organizer who worked very closely with Bpep and the Coalition Against Violence, who is co-hosting this with us, Josh Fleetman.
Thank you, Tim. Once again, my name is Josh Fleetman. I am the Western Pennsylvania manager with Ceasefire PA. If you're not familiar with our organization, we are the Commonwealth's gun violence prevention organization. We organize with communities most impacted by this crisis. We hold lawmakers and those in positions of power accountable, and we try to maximize the strengths of each member in our broad coalition. I'm here today, and I think all of us are here today, because I'm mad. I am mad because if the Tennessee House of Representatives spent half the energy on trying to address gun violence that they spent on punishing and silencing Representatives Pearson and Jones for trying to do something about gun violence, maybe the 6 people at Covenant School would still be alive. Maybe Tennessee would not have one of the highest rates of gun violence in this country. And so we are standing here in solidarity with Representatives Pearson and Jones, with their thousands and thousands of constituents who are now lacking representation, with all people in Tennessee and Pennsylvania and across this country who are suffering from an epidemic of gun violence that is ceaseless, that is worsening every single day. And what we'll do here in Pennsylvania, and Ceasefire PA will continue to help lead this movement however we can, we will honor the people of Tennessee, the people of Covenant School, the people of Kentucky now, the people of Pittsburgh and Philadelphia and Erie and Harrisburg. We will honor all of them by continuing to fight for life-saving policy change that we know, evidence shows, will save lives. The kind of change that Representatives Pearson and Jones were punished for speaking out about. Things like, as Tim mentioned, extreme risk protection orders or red flag laws that we know could have helped prevent the shooting not just in Nashville, but the shooting that happened in Knoxville and so many others. Things like requiring the safe storage of firearms to prevent school shootings, unintentional shootings, and suicides. Like requiring the reporting of lost and stolen firearms to help interrupt the flow of illegal guns that are wreaking havoc on this community here in the Hill District and too many others across our region. And of course, universal background checks to prevent weapons of war from getting into the wrong hands. All of these policies will save lives. All of these policies have the majority support of the people of Pennsylvania, of the people of this country, and we will not allow shameful tactics of silencing to keep our voices down. We'll continue to speak out, and in partnership with so many people here, thank you for being here and coming on such short notice. We will continue to fight for a life free from gun violence. Thank you.
Josh Fleetman. We're going to bring up Sister Barbara Finch. She has to go to another event. She is part of Bpep CAB, but she's representing Sisters of St. Joseph. Sister Barbara Finch.
Good afternoon, everyone. I not only represent the Sisters of St. Joseph, but also two other Catholic organizations, the Association of Pittsburgh Priests and Pittsburgh Area Pax Christi. And I belong to nearly all of the organizations represented behind me. I challenge us all this afternoon to stop using the separation of church and state as an excuse. We need to learn what it really means and what it really does not mean. And what it does not mean is that people of faith are still mandated to speak up when they see and they know injustice. I'm tired of hearing people in our worship sites saying, that doesn't belong in church, synagogue, or mosque. It's the very place where it belongs. So we need to begin to speak up when there is an injustice. We only have to read our scriptures. The Hebrew prophets talked about freeing the oppressed and the imprisoned and justice to the widow and the orphan. In the New Testament, we hear the same. In all of our faith traditions, there is some statement about we need to respond to restore justice to our neighbors and to all of the world. And so it is about that we need to do that. Pope Francis recently stated that the act of being involved in politics is the most charitable act that one can participate in. Now, what did he mean by that? He didn't mean about lack of civility. He didn't mean about partisanship. He meant about advocating for change and transformation of our world. And so we need to do that. Now, this past weekend, whatever place of worship you were, or if you worshiped at home, if you didn't feel a sense of anger, sacred anger and outrage, then you need to ask yourself, why not? Why not? We're sick and tired of people that are innocent being killed, and also the racist action of expelling those two legislators who were only representing their constituents. They did not break any law. So it's about time that we know that our Creator, our higher power, whoever you worship, has given us a voice, and it's time that we use that voice, that we change all our policies that are unjust. And in this case, I also support safe gun legislation. And please, work with us. Join some of these groups. Contact your legislator in Pennsylvania and guarantee, let's not be apathetic. Well, that happened in Tennessee. It didn't happen to us.
Right.
It could always happen in Pennsylvania.
Right.
So don't keep silent. Speak up.
That's right. Beautiful job. It's hard to follow the mention of the Pope, but we're going to bring Dana Kellerman from the Squirrel Hill Stands Against Violence. It was created out of some tragic moments in our community that will live with us for years to come. We run into each other frequently in Harrisburg and other events fighting for the end of violence. Dana Kellerman, Squirrel Hill Stands Against Violence.
Thank you, Tim. I'm actually here from Squirrel Hill Stands Against Gun Violence. While we would like to take on all violence, we're not that big. So 2 weeks ago, a man armed with weapons of war slaughtered 3 9-year-old children and 3 staff members at Covenant School in Nashville, Tennessee. In 2 weeks, the man who nearly 5 years ago murdered 11 worshipers at my synagogue with those same weapons will go on trial. In the time between these 2 gun massacres, over 150,000 Americans have died of gun violence. Over half of those gun deaths are suicide. Every single day, 72 Americans take their own lives with a gun. Just under 45% of those deaths are homicides. 21,000 Americans are murdered with a gun every single year. In 2022, 6,000 of these victims were children. Guns are now the #1 cause of child death, surpassing accidents and cars. Gun violence is also a racial issue. A black child is over 10 times more likely to be murdered by a gun than a white child. But what happened when 3 legislators in Tennessee joined the hundreds of Tennesseans demanding better gun laws after that most recent massacre? Did their colleagues join them in supporting those common sense gun laws, which are overwhelmingly supported by Democratic, Independent, and Republican voters? Laws requiring a background check for every gun purchase. Red flag laws to temporarily keep people at risk of harming themselves or others from having a gun. Safe storage laws to prevent school shootings and accidental shootings. And mandatory reporting of lost and stolen guns to cut down on gun trafficking and keep guns out of communities that suffer every day from community violence. They didn't. Instead, they outrageously voted to expel 2 black representatives, a move remarkable in the blatancy of its racism and calculated effort to divert our attention away from the 3 little children and the 3 school staff members who were murdered. We are not Tennesseans, but we stand today in solidarity with the Tennessee 3, with Justin Jones, Justin Pearson, and Gloria Johnson. And we stand with the people of Tennessee in demanding stronger gun laws. We can make sure that companies headquartered in Tennessee hear from us about both gun laws and democracy. We can pressure our legislators in Congress to move forward federal gun laws. And we can pressure our own Pennsylvania legislators for better laws here at home. At Squirrel Hill Stands, we will do all of these things. We ask all to join us.
Let's do it.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask Dana if she would to send that to us. We'll put it up on our website for the Coalition Against Violence. Speaking of legislation, one of the groups that has been very powerful, not only in Pennsylvania but across the nation, is Moms Demand Action. And that middle word is the key word, followed by the other key word, action. Of course, mom's a pretty powerful word too. My mom was why I do what I do. Hadley Haas, local group co-lead for Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense.
Okay, good evening. My name is Hadley Hawes. I am the local group co-lead for Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. We are a grassroots collection of mothers and others, all volunteers, who are committed to ending gun violence. I am in this fight because I'm a mom. I have 2 teenage sons. I am in this fight because firearms are the leading cause of death among children and teens in this state and in this country. I am in this fight because we know what we need to do to address this problem. We know that laws like extreme risk protection orders and secure storage work. We have the research. We have the data. What we don't have is enough lawmakers with courage. And in Tennessee, they throw those legislators out, especially if you're young, black, and amazing. So, while we don't have enough lawmakers with courage, those lawmakers without courage, they see our kids' lives as expendable. Just the cost of admission to carry a firearm anywhere and everywhere. Because unfettered access to guns is more important than safe schools, than safe streets, than safe churches, than safe beaches and banks, and who knows where it's going to be tomorrow. I am in this fight because enough is enough. And the longer this craziness goes on, the more people join our ranks. I've got emails, I have 2 meetings tomorrow. Everybody wants to know what they can do to fight this craziness. So we will keep fighting and we will keep going. Thank you.
Hadley Haas, local group co-leader, Moms Demand Action. We're going to call up David Ansman from the Center for Loving Kindness.
Yes, kindness. My name is David Ansman, and I am here on behalf of the Center for Loving Kindness and the Jewish Federation of Greater Pittsburgh. I'm Jewish. Yesterday was Easter. And Jesus of Nazareth, who ascended on that day, knew in his heart that hatred was the wrong thing to do. Love is still the basis of all relationships. And we're not seeing that all over this country. Here, there was a massacre at Tree of Life, a place that I called home for decades. But it's not just here. The founders of this country created a document that was the governing document of the United States of America, our Constitution, and it calls for democracy. And what happened in Tennessee was not a democratic event. It was an autocratic